welcome to a new Knitted by Whitney video. I am going to apologize in advance because I am very quickly losing the light. Doyle and I got stuck in traffic on our drive home today, and I'm unfortunately dealing with about an hour's less light than I normally would if I was recording in the evening. So I do apologize if this video gets steadily darker. I have turned on the lights in this room and there is still some light coming in from outside, but needs must when you're filming in the fall. And the reason that I am filming today and bringing you a new video quite quickly after my last one is because I have a new pattern roundup to share with you today. We all know that fall is knitting season, but for a lot of us, fall is also Gilmore Girls season. And I know Doyle and I have been watching a few episodes here and there. It's kind of like our comfort show, especially in the fall. I feel like that's where my fall feelings really start, is when we start watching a little bit of Gilmore Girls. I've seen the show many times. I grew up with it. I remember that that was the first show that my mom let me stay up to watch because it started in 2000 and it was on at 8 o'clock on Friday nights. Maybe it was 9 o'clock because I live in the Atlantic time zone. So it might have been 8 o'clock Eastern time, which is 9 o'clock for me. But because it was a Friday, my mom let me stay up because I didn't have to get up early for school the next day. And we watched the show together because we were a mother-daughter duo. And I have a lot of great memories of watching that show with my mom and really enjoying spending that time together every week. It was really nice. So I've seen the show many times, but this is actually Doyle's first time watching the show. And we don't watch the whole multi-series back to back to back. What we're doing is we're watching a few episodes here and there when we feel like watching it, and then we just wait until the next time we feel like watching it to pick it up again and keep watching. So we're currently on season 3. I think we're close to the end of season 3, but Doyle is getting to see all of the Dean and Jess drama play out. And he does know that there are other potential paramours that come out for Rory, but as of right now, he knows only about Jess and Dean. He's not adverse to getting spoilers because I did warn him about the most hated character in the entire series. So he does know that there are some less savory characters to come out. And it's really interesting watching the show together because I'm getting his view of it as a first-time viewer, looking back on it from a time when I was younger, and I'm getting two different experiences of the show, which I really, really love. So back when I watched the show for the first time, when I was younger, when I was in a similar situation and I had some of the same beliefs and ideals, I was very much a Rory fan. I loved Rory. And I kind of wanted to be like her when I got older because I think I was a few years younger than her in the show. But now that I'm older, I definitely don't align with Rory anymore. And in fact, this might be a controversial opinion. I kind of think Rory's a bad person. Sorry, that might be controversial to say. We can get into all the controversial Gilmore Girls beliefs and opinions down in the comments, so please, of course, share those with me. So like many fans of Gilmore Girls who grew up with the show, I have, of course, changed who I most like in the show and who I align best with in the show as I've gotten older. Of course, many people gravitate towards Lorelai and Luke. I definitely kind of feel like I'm Luke sometimes. Definitely have a bit of a curmudgeon streak to me at times. But my favorite character is, in fact, Suki. I see so much of my young adult self in Suki. I see a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the self-esteem issues, especially when I was in my mid to late 20s. And I kind of feel like I also have a really big passion in my life like she does with cooking, except for me, it's knitting. So let's use that to segue into the title of this video, which is my top 30 size-inclusive patterns inspired by Gilmore Girls. I am so excited to be doing this video. So you may have seen a few other Gilmore Girls inspired pattern review videos here and there on YouTube. And I just wanted to point out that this one is in fact inspired by Starcrossed Knits video, Gilmore Girls Knitting Inspo 40 Knitting Patterns for Fall and Winter 2023. And just in case you think that I'm stepping on somebody's toes, I want to let you know right now, I have already had a chat with Starcrossed Knits and let her know that I'm making this video, and she is very much in support of it. So just want to let you know, I am doing this video because I was inspired by her video. I have put together almost a completely different list of patterns. There's one pattern that crosses over with her video, but we've both agreed that this pattern is phenomenal and more people need to know about it. So she has very graciously okayed it so that I can share that same pattern in my video. Of course, I don't have a coffee because it is late at night, but I do have the biggest mug in my collection with some water in it. And this is probably my most Gilmore Girls-like mug, my biggest Lorelai or Rory shaped mug. And this one was a gift from a dear friend of mine for my bridal shower. And it says, "Drink tea, read books, be happy." And I think if you just swapped tea with coffee, this is Rory's mug right here. And I have a big mug of water because I anticipate that I'm going to be doing a lot of talking in this video. Now, before I dive deep into this list of patterns, I just wanted to talk about what I'm doing with this style of video. So, like all of my other pattern roundup videos, I am doing a list of size inclusive patterns, but with this one, I am doing them inspired by characters and indeed different outfits that are worn by those characters in Gilmore Girls. And I have limited myself to only the original series. I'm not sharing anything that was shown in the Year in a Life, which is the sequel series, even though there is a really good size inclusive Intarsia sweater that Lane wears in the sequel series. But if you are curious about that, let me know in the comments and I will send you a link to that pattern as well. So as I show the patterns that I think go well with each character, I'm also going to be putting a photo of something that they wear in the show that either looks similar to the design that I'm showing or is almost identical to the pattern that I'm showing, because that's what I'm doing with my video. I'm trying to find patterns that you can knit that are recreations of what you see in the show or that are very, very similar in style to what the characters wear in the show. So that's kind of how I've organized my video, and it makes it a little different from Starcrossed Knits video in that I'm showcasing patterns for more characters. She focused mainly on Rory and Lorelai. So let's dive into these patterns. I am going to be looking down because I have my laptop right here. I couldn't find my iPad, which I usually use for these videos, so I'm using my old clunky laptop. So if I'm looking down and over here, that's exactly why. And let's get into these patterns. And of course, there's nowhere else that you can start than the beginning, the pilot episode, Rory's white cable sweater. And no, the sweater that I'm wearing is not the one that I'm suggesting to look like that sweater that she's wearing. However, if you're interested in making it, it is the Eclair Raglan by Laura Penrose of Penrose Knits. And I have a podcast episode all about making this sweater, which I will link below in the description box. But what I recommend you knit to look just like Rory's cable knit sweater from the pilot is the Arrakis pullover by Joan Ho. And I do hope I pronounced that word right. I've never heard that word before, so I might have gotten it wrong. But to me, this is almost a dead ringer for Rory's sweater with a few modifications. Not too many. All I think you need to do is omit the twisted rib collar and just make the sweater longer. It already has a good amount of positive ease. It has the same diamond cable detail that Rory has on her sweater, and it is of course front and center on the sweater, bracketed by some other skinnier cables that just give you that really, really thick, cozy Aran weight sweater vibe. Definitely like a grandfather sweater that you might have found at a thrift store, or maybe you just found it in a closet and decided to wear it because it was cold one day and suddenly it became a peak part of your wardrobe. And I really love how the show starts off with Rory in this extremely comfortable piece of knitwear. It really showcases what her lifestyle is like in Stars Hollow. Kind of shows that she's very relaxed, she's very laid back, kind of hints at the fact that maybe she and her mom don't have a lot of money because she's wearing this thrifted oversized sweater or a hand-me-down sweater. But it just shows that she's very comfortable in her personality and in who she is. Unlike the next sweater that I'm going to show you, which is also from early on in the show, and that is Rory's orange ribbed sweater that she wears in this promo photo. And this one, it kind of looks like she's got a little bit of a bell sleeve. It is kind of hard to tell, but it does have this lovely mock neck and this ribbed detailing. And to knit a sweater that looks just like that one, I recommend the Walhalla sweater, or maybe it's Valhalla. I'm not entirely sure, but it is made by the Blue Mouse. Now this is a pattern that I showed in my Knitflix series that I hosted over on Instagram, and I used this for a very different pattern recommendation, but it really does look like this orange sweater that Rory wears as well, and I think it is a great doppelganger. In case you couldn't tell, we're doing Rory first. And the next pattern I'm going to show you is inspired by Rory's sweater that she wears the first time they go to the grandparents for Friday night dinner. And to knit a pattern that looks just like this sweater, I recommend a brand new pattern that just came out, I think last week. This is the Skyline Pullover by Tori Yu of Tori Knits NYC. This is a really lovely pattern. I really love that ribbed detail going down the arms. It's kind of like, I think it's like a knit 4 purl 1 or a knit 3 purl 1, just giving you some nice lines and ridges to go down your sweater just to add a little bit of visual impact. I think that looks really, really nice, and it flows so nicely from the collar of the sweater, just creating these really nice lines that go all the way down, and the body is knit in stockinette. Of course, this one uses a bit of mohair to make it nice and fuzzy, but you don't necessarily need to. It's hard to tell if Rory's is fuzzy or not just because the picture quality is not that great. Case in point, I apologize for any not so great looking pictures. These are from about 20 years ago. It's hard to find good quality ones on the internet. Number 4 on my list is inspired by Rory's time at Yale. This is a really cute V-neck cropped sweater that she wears that has a little bit of a second color detail. And to knit a sweater that looks like that, I recommend Vesey. I hope I pronounced that correct in one of those ways. And this is by Paula Pereira. Again, I apologize if I got that incorrect. And this was designed for Brooklyn Tweed. Now, this pattern, as soon as I saw this photo of Rory, I knew exactly what pattern I was going to choose because my friend Kendra of Valenskane has test knitted this pattern. And I know from her experience, it is quite a cropped sweater. So if you want to knit this sweater and you're not a big fan of a cropped style, I definitely recommend getting a little extra yarn and knitting some extra length because it's a little cropped. I remember when Kendra made it, she was quite surprised and she ended up needing to knit more for comfort. But wouldn't this look so cute with a tartan skirt, or like Rory has it in the show, she wears it with some jeans and a tank top underneath. Such a 2000s look, having a cropped shirt and a really long, like hip length camisole underneath with jeans. I don't even want to think about how many times I wore an outfit like that. Way more than I should have, but that was the fashion of the times. Now my next pattern that I'm going to share, I couldn't believe it when I found this photo of Rory because I had already talked about this pattern in a previous video. I've talked about this pattern in my top 30 Advent patterns. But this is a great one for stash busting, or if you have some really fun sock yarn that you want to show off, because it is Sock Arms by Stephanie Lotvin of Telly Bean Knits. Now, I really love this pattern because it's going to enable you to use up some scrap yarns, play around with some fun colors, maybe make the funky color scheme of this picture of Rory. But I particularly love that the style of this sweater is spot on for a 2000 sweater because, like I just mentioned in the previous pattern, it's one of those hip length sweaters. For my last Rory specifically inspired pattern, you'll see what I mean when I get to the next few patterns. I have a really interesting one because this one is inspired by Rory's first dance dress that she wears the first time she goes to a dance with Dean. I love that blue dress so much. It's such a great style. Lorelai is such a good seamstress. I can't believe she made that. And it really suits Rory. It looks really, really cute. And there happens to be a knitting pattern that looks just like it, or at least the top half. I'm talking about the Summer Priestess top by Michael Shawn. This is another recently published pattern, and it just looks super cute, really sexy, so you can show off your lovely shoulders and collarbone. But it also looks really cozy because it's knit with a bit of mohair. Of course, you don't have to use mohair if you don't want to, but I really love that fuzz element to go with this really sexy, little bit of skin showing top, and it looks really similar to the dress that Rory wears. Moving on from just Rory to now the Chilton girls in general, so including Rory. Of course, my girl Paris. She's another character that as I've gotten older, I totally get Paris. And then of course, the other girls like Francie and Madeline and Louise, all of the Chilton girls. The next few patterns are really inspired by the Chilton uniform. Starting with, of course, that perfectly fitting cardigan. And I have an amazing pattern to share for you that looks like this cardigan. I'm talking about the Flare Free Cardi by Sharon Hartley, otherwise known as River Road Knits. This is one of my favorite patterns that I have ever found and shared. I haven't yet had a chance to knit it for myself, but what I love about it is the amount of customization that you can do with this pattern. There are 21 sizes with this pattern. I know, I cannot believe it. And within those 21 sizes, there are 2 different lengths that you can knit this sweater so you can make it really fit you well. Now, of course, sometimes the Chilton girls don't wear a cardigan, they wear a V-neck vest. And there's a really great vest pattern out there. You might even say it's the best vest by James N. Watts. This is another really great pattern that has a lot of customization to it. What I like about this one is not just that you can customize the length, but I really love that deep V, especially if you're wearing a button-up shirt underneath, or maybe you're wearing more of, say like a tied collar shirt. I love that look with a vest over top for some added warmth and some coziness, especially as we move into the colder months. And this one would be a great option for that and looks pretty similar to the Chilton vest. Now comes the pattern that both Starcross Knits and myself are choosing to include on our lists. It is the Serious Skirt by either Carissa or Charissa. I do apologize if I pronounce it incorrectly. This has got to be one of the coolest knitting patterns that I have ever found. I can't take credit for finding it by myself because I actually found this from Laura Penrose of Penrose Knits. She shared this pattern in one of her Patreon videos recently as something that she would like to knit someday, and instantly in love. Definite Clueless vibes. Totally Clueless vibes. But also Chilton tartan skirt vibes, am I right? You could totally do a light blue mixed with a navy to kind of mimic the look of the tartan skirt, even though this is technically a houndstooth pattern. But I totally love this skirt, and because you're going to be doing it with color work, you're going to have double the yarn, which means double the warmth for all of those cold fall and winter days when you want to look cute in a skirt, but you maybe want something that's going to keep you a little toasty warm. Now, if you're just not ready for color work yet, or you want something a little more simple and you still want a really cute flared mini skirt, check out the Flirt Skirt and Flirt Skirt Light, both by Claire Jackson of Perfectly Knotted. This is such a fun pattern, and I really love how there are lots of options for sizing, and it's really great that this pattern works really well if you have wide hips like myself, because you're starting at your natural waist and essentially you're just building out until the skirt fits your comfort level, and then you can knit it as long or as short as you would like. Maybe you want to show off some sexy legs, maybe you want to have a bit more length for your workplace or your school. This is a great option. Now we've taken care of the young girls, let's move on to our girl Lorelai, who has wild and crazy style, but still cool as hell. So let's start with an item of clothing that I think Lorelai wears more than anything else in the show. And that is a mock neck tank top sweater. And I have seen this in many episodes of the show, and there's quite a few options out there for patterns like this. But the one that I'm sharing that looks like this is the mini mock neck tag by Jessie Maed. This is one that I've seen some other folks knit, and it just looks stunning. Of course, Jessie Maed is known for doing really good size-inclusive patterns that really look flattering on everybody. But again, a little caveat, a lot of people say that Jessie Maed patterns do not have the length for comfort. So again, if you're worried about it being too cropped, use a little extra yarn to add some length if need be. But this is such a great layering piece because it's made with fingering weight yarn. So you could very easily have this in like a merino wool or even a wool silk blend or even a cotton, and have a really great layering piece that you could wear when you just want a little bit of warmth, but maybe you don't want to overheat, and wear this throughout many different seasons, not just fall and winter. But if you do want a little extra warmth, maybe you want your arms to be just as warm as your neck, Lorelai also wears a ton of turtleneck sweaters. And my favorite turtleneck sweater that I found in my travels is Bibliophile by Alicia Plummer. And no, I don't just love it because it is a book-related title. I love it because of the fit and because of the size range. Super cozy, but also it's going to be nice and thin, great for layering, especially under, say, a leather suit jacket like Lorelai wears. Speaking of layering, one of the things that Lorelai likes to do is layer a vest over a shirt. She wears them mainly when she's working at the Independence Inn. When the seasons go on and she gets her own inn with Suki, the Dragonfly Inn, you see her style start to relax. But when she's at the Independence Inn, she's still kind of in corporate mode. She wears a lot of dress pants and ankle boots and dress shirts. But in the colder months, you see her layering some sweater vests over those button-up shirts. And the first one that I want to share with you is the Ribblesdale vest by Lily Kate France. I think this one is such a Lorelai vest, particularly like this one photo that I'm showing right now, because it is a buttoned vest. And Lily Kate is great for making very nicely form-fitting patterns that really hug your curves and really show off your shape. And I feel like this one really mimics the non-knitted version of a vest that Lorelai is wearing in this photo. But that's not the only vest that Lorelai wears. She also wears a lot of Argyle vests, which, yeah, those weren't the best things that we wore in the 2000s. Particularly not the ones that were like bright cotton candy pink mixed with Kermit the Frog green and a little bit of like sky cerulean blue. Like, oh my gosh, what were we thinking? But if you want something a little more toned down, I recommend the Angus vest by Renee Cooling, designed for Knitty Magazine. This one is one of the few Argyle vests that are size inclusive that I've been able to find in my travels. Now, if you know more, by all means, share them in the comments below. But this is what I was able to find, and I really like this one because it's not in your face Argyle. It's not the whole front of a vest Argyle. It's just this really nice band of color work along the front of the vest. It is, of course, stranded color work, and as you can tell by the photo, it's a little bit of three-stranded colorwork knitting. But if you're up for the challenge, I believe you can do it. Something else that Lorelai wears a lot of in the show are these really cute empire waist shirts. We were a big fan of empire waists in the 2000s, and particularly ones that were kind of V-neck or really low scoop neck. Particularly, I remember seeing a lot of camisoles that were empire waisted that had these really tiny little skinny straps. Didn't really work for me because I was big busted from about puberty. So I always had the bras that had the really thick straps, so I could never wear the delicate little ones. However, that was okay. It wasn't really my thing. But I did particularly like empire waist shirts that did in fact cover your bra strap or indeed had long sleeves, similar to the Tesoro sweater by Knititude. This one is one of her more recent designs, and I know she really struggled to get the fit right on this, but her pattern testers were instrumental in helping her get perfect fit, especially with the larger sizes. So I know for a fact this one has been very well tested, and she actually changed her pattern and fixed it up to allow it to fit perfectly for a variety of sizes, including the plus sizes. So I really love this pattern because it kind of mimics the look of an empire waist, because it's stockinette covering the bust and then it changes to ribbing, which also gives you a really nicely fitted body to your sweater. I think this looks really great with jeans or with a skirt, and it really gives you that look of an empire waist shirt without the maternity look of most of those tops during the 2000s. So this one is a really great alternative for that look. Now, Lorelai may dress sexy and wear a lot of revealing or tight-fitting clothes, but she's no stranger to comfort. She loves a comfy, cozy cardi, such as this one that she wears. I think this one is also in the episode where they go to the grandparents for the first time. This is her jacket that she wears, and you see it a lot in the opening sequence of the show because it's a scene that they use a lot in most of the openers. The opening does change as the seasons go on, but I think this particular clip is in at least the first 3 seasons, maybe even longer than that. But it is this really cozy, toggled, buttoned cardigan that she wears. And to knit a similar cardigan, I recommend the Hills and Stones Chunky Cardigan by Amanda Lee. Now, this one just has regular buttons, but you could very easily use little antler toggles that you could buy online, or you could get faux antler ones if you don't want to use animal product. But you could get a very similar look to that sweater that Lorelai wears. And I know hers is cabled, but I kind of wanted to bring something non-cabled because Gilmore Girls has a lot of cables. So I kind of wanted to bring some non-cabled options as well. And this one just looks super cozy, really much has that coatigan vibe. I don't know if you've heard that term lately, but that's when you have a cardigan that is so chunky and oversized and comfortable that you wear it like a coat. I really feel like this pattern fits that bill. Now, if you want an actual knitted coat, I have a pattern for you. Inspired by Lorelai's blue puffy coat. I know, can you believe it? I found a knitting pattern that looks like a puffy coat. Let me show you the super soft coat by Kate Hammett, otherwise known as One of a Kate. This has got to be one of the coolest patterns I've ever found. I cannot believe that she designed a cardigan to look like a puffy coat. And it really works. And I think the trick is you really need to use yarn similar to the recommended yarn. You need to use a faux fur yarn and then a non-faux fur yarn to really mimic that big puffy section full of polyfill or goose down, and then the seam of the coat. And I really love this option. I just think it's so fun. I think you could have a really great time choosing colors, as the pattern samples have shown. I know there's some really lovely pale options, some really rich colored like jewel tones, and then there's neutrals. You could really play around with it, and you could even make a blue one to look just like Lorelai's jacket. Okay, I knew when I was putting this video together that I was mainly going to have patterns for Lorelai and Rory, and that's just because they're the main characters of the show. They're in every single episode, they're in almost every single scene. They wear a lot of clothes in this show. You see them go through a lot of clothes. But you do also see them wearing some of those same things a few different times, and even seeing the same piece on both of the women. But let's move on to some of the other characters, including my favorite character, Suki St. James. I love Suki so much, and although I found it difficult to find a photo of Suki in something other than her chef's jacket, I did find this one picture because it kind of shows off the fact that Suki wears a lot of big, long cardigans. And I have a pattern for you. This one is actually a free pattern. It is the Uptown cardigan by Stephanie Jessica Lau, otherwise known as All About Ami. And I have shown this pattern before. This one was actually in my top 50 free size inclusive patterns video. And I love this one because even though it is this big long cardigan, it definitely has style to it. And I think it has style because it is a classic cardigan. It really has this really lovely shape. It uses garter stitch. So for one, you're going to be knitting the pieces flat, all with knit stitches. You don't have to do any purling because you're doing garter stitch. But I also feel like garter stitch has this nice level of sophistication to it when used the right way, and I think this pattern uses it the right way. Also, it has these big huge pockets on the front. You need to have pockets if you're going to wear a big long cardigan like that, because this is something you're going to wear as your outer layer, such as a coatigan, as I've mentioned in one of the earlier patterns. Now when it comes to big, cozy layering pieces, Suki is known for that in most of the scenes where she's in when she's not in her chef's jacket, but nobody is known for it more than Miss Patty. I did need to include a Miss Patty pattern because nothing to me screams Miss Patty more than the Big Cozy Cardi by Andrea Mowry. I adore this pattern. It only came out a few months ago, and it's something that I definitely want to make because of the cozy factor. I love that this is almost like this cocoon of a cardigan. To me, this would be my home on the couch cardigan. I would live in it. And I really love that it combines a thicker yarn and a thinner yarn. I love that there's this mohair around your neck on the front of the cardigan. I feel like that really elevates this to give it a more luxury feel and make you feel particularly cozy because mohair is quite soft. But if mohair is not your thing, Surrey alpaca would do the same thing. Now I know I've already shown some knitwear inspired by Paris when it comes to her children uniform, but by the time Rory and Paris go to Yale, they don't have a uniform anymore. And Paris likes to wear some pretty cozy sweaters, including a really impressive crocheted and knit sweater. However, I'm not sharing that one. I am sharing one similar to this cabled sweater that she wears in one of the episodes. And I'm sharing this one because Gilmore Girls is all about the cables. They are the stars of the knitwear in this show. And I have found the perfect sweater to match this one, and that is the Dorney sweater by Rebecca Clow, otherwise known as the Crayabea. I am a huge fan of Rebecca's patterns. I cannot believe she's only been designing for a year, and she has created so many beautiful and unique patterns, including the Dorney. Now, the one difference between Paris's sweater and the Dorney is that the Dorney is a raglan construction versus Paris's is definitely a set-in sleeve. But let's take an educated guess and say that Paris's is probably not hand knit. It's probably a store-bought sweater, and a store-bought sweater is usually machine knitted, and they can't do a raglan. They do things in pieces, and then it is seamed together. So this one looks slightly different, but I think it is a great doppelganger for Paris's cabled sweater. If you hear any rustling in the back, one of my cats is in the corner. I think she's found a bug or something. So if you hear noises in the background, I do apologize. But let's move on to my last sweater inspired by a female character, and that is one Lane Kim, who wears some pretty impressive knitwear, particularly Nordic-inspired sweaters. So I wasn't able to find something that combined all of the elements of this sweater that Lane is wearing. I mainly chose a sweater that had a more traditional Nordic yoke look to it. So this is like the Lopi style sweater. And I went for something pretty traditional because, let's be honest, Mrs. Kim is incredibly traditional. She's incredibly conservative. I know that this is a pattern that Lane would feel comfortable wearing around her mother. And that is, of course, the Brunstain sweater by Isolde Teague. This is a sweater that has an impressive range because it has both child sizes and adult sizes. So if you are a knitter and you have a child in your life that you would like to make a matching sweater for, you can make this pattern for yourself and for them. I really like this pattern because it is a traditional Nordic inspired yoke. However, you could definitely play around with some pretty wild colors and create something that is more in line with Lane's personality. So the sample that I've shown uses 3 colors, navy, white, and gray. However, there are lots of other options available to you. They do have a kid version as well that uses a bright yellow, a teal, and like a sky blue. But you could totally play around with the number of colors that you want to use, and of course, the combos that you could make. You could go with something more traditional, or you could go with something really bright and fun, more similar to Lane's personality. Okay, that's enough about the girls. I have some great patterns for the men in this show. And I know you have been asking for me to do a top size inclusive list for men's patterns. Yes, I am working on that. I haven't put it together yet, but let this video be a little introduction to some of the patterns that I might show in that video and give you a taste of some men's inspired knitwear that you could make. Now, some of these patterns are graded specifically for men, others are graded as unisex. Just keep in mind, if it's a unisex pattern, you might need to pick a broader size for the shoulder width, and you might need to knit more length depending on the masculine person in your life that you are knitting this pattern for. So I thought, as I talk about the men's knitwear on the show, I'm going to start with, of course, Rory's boyfriends, and I'm going to go in order of the boyfriends, starting with Dean. And this is kind of the only photo that I was able to find of Dean in a sweater. And this one, I can tell just by looking at it, it's one of those military surplus style sweaters. So although it's not quite the same as his military style sweater, the sweater that I've chosen that looks like Dean's is the Fisherman's Raglan by Leibowitz. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And this one is cheating a little bit because it is mostly stockinette. There's only a bit of ribbing on the front of the sweater, but it is a fisherman's rib, which means that it is extra squishy and cozy. And I really loved the turtleneck on this sweater. I think that is another one that's like very much a nice masculine style, but it is a unisex sweater, so keep that in mind with sizing. And I just really loved the texture that you get from the front of the sweater. It just looks super cozy, and there's a really nice raglan detail on it as well. I just think it's a really nice elevated sweater. Now, when it comes to Jess's knitwear, it's pretty similar to Dean's. I'd say Jess's sweater, again, I could only find one photo of Jess wearing knitwear in the show, and his sweater is really kind of like the civilian version of Dean's sweater. It's just a crew neck style, and it doesn't have that pocket on the front of the sweater. But I found a really great pattern to match with his sweater, and that is the Nido pullover by Jared Flood, designed for Brooklyn Tweed. This one has a really great size range, and I really love that there are some options to the sleeve lengths that you can make for this sweater. The pattern sample on Ravelry shows both short sleeve and long sleeve, as well as any length in between. But of course, to look like Jess's, I would do full length sleeves, and I just think this would look so lovely in a classic navy like the photo of Jess. Now we move on to my personal favorite of Rory's boyfriends, also a controversial opinion. I love Logan Huntsberger. And the reason I love Logan is because, yes, he and Rory got into trouble. But let's be fair, Rory got into trouble with all 3 of her boyfriends. I just think Logan challenged Rory in a way that neither of her previous boyfriends did. The way that I look at it, she and Logan were still young. They were still in like their early college days where people make mistakes, people make wrong choices, and they learn from it. And I really feel like if Rory and Logan had stayed together, they really would have grown up together, and they would have challenged each other and pushed each other to become better people. And then maybe the events of A Year in the Life would not have played out the way that they did. However, they did. You'll know if you've seen the show. So, I have 3 sweaters inspired by one Logan Huntsberger because Logan wears the most knitwear out of all of Rory's boyfriends, and he wears some snazzy knitwear. Starting with this cabled sweater that he wears, although part of my heart just breaks looking at that ripped collar. Oh! But if you would like to knit a pattern like his cabled sweater, I recommend Foster by Megan Babin, designed for Hudson and West Company. It looks very, very similar to the cabled sweater that Logan wears, and I love that you get this very bold texture. This is a sweater that if you passed your hand over it, you would really feel like the peaks and valleys of those cable stitches. And I really feel like that texture is something that would be very, very comforting to wear. And if you are the partner of the person wearing this sweater, having that really nice tight fit of the sweater would just look amazing. Now, one of Logan's other sweater looks is this zip-up sweater, and I have a really great doppelganger for you. It's another Rebecca Clow pattern. It is the Lanark sweater. Now, this was Rebecca's first design that was intended to be primarily a men's pattern, but it is a unisex pattern. And I love that she had her family posing in different versions of this sweater for the photos. In fact, this photo here is her brother, and I just find that it really speaks to a 90s, 2000s sweater look, but it's also incredibly timeless. This is a style that's been around for ages. The quarter zip sweater looks really timeless. I love it personally. And that fisherman's rib is so cozy. You get so much squish with it. Yes, it's going to take you some extra time to knit, but it's definitely going to be something that's going to be worth the work to put into it, including inserting a zip, which sounds terrifying, I know, but Rebecca has a great tutorial video that shows you how to do it step by step and really helps you get it perfect. Now, although Logan mainly wears the zip-up style of sweater, I found another option if you are not quite ready to do an inserted zip, or if you just want more of that 90s ribbed style of sweater. And that is the Aeternum sweater, I hope I pronounced that correctly, by Zanate Knits. And again, I hope I pronounced that correctly. This is such a peak 90s, 2000s style sweater. I love the all over wide rib. I love the button placket on the front. This really looks to me like a Henley, except a knitted version. And I really feel like this would be super, super cozy. If you are not making it for a masculine person, or if you are not a masculine person making it, I feel like it would really look like you stole your partner's sweater and you wanted to put it on and feel really comfy cozy. I just love it, especially in this mushroom brown color. I'm a big fan of that color, and it really looks like something that you pulled out to wear for comfort and decided to steal because it was just the best sweater ever. So yes, I've already talked about how the Coatigan is really popular right now as an outerwear piece to wear, but I didn't talk about the other style of outerwear that has a smushed name, and I'm talking about shackets. I have seen these pop up a lot. I know it's not my particular style, but you know whose style it does look like? Luke Danes, who is almost never found in anything except a button-down shirt. And the Dawn to Dusk shacket by Tiffany Ty really fits the bill for something that Luke would wear as knitwear. I absolutely love that this pattern has taken the tailoring and all of the shaping of a button-down shirt and turned it into knitwear. I'm so impressed by this pattern. They got the high cut of the side of the shirt jacket. They got those pointy collar pieces of the jacket. There's even stitch detailing on the sides to mimic the seams of a sewn jacket. And I can totally see Luke in this. So Jackson is outside a lot because he is a farmer and he wears a lot of layers, and you can't honestly tell everything that he's wearing because he often has an apron and then a shirt and then what looks to be a crew neck shirt underneath, and he's got the funky little knitted hats on. But a knitted pattern that I think really suits the style that he wears in the show and kind of looks like something he could have on underneath all of those shirts and jackets is the Bibliophile 3. Just a perfectly fitting crew neck sweater. I really love this pattern as a classic style to make for the masculine person in your life. And I really feel like this is something that could indeed be a great layering piece, either over or under a shirt. If you had someone in your life who likes to wear a lot of button-down shirts, but they want a nice sweater to wear over top, this could fit that bill. But also, if they were the opposite and they like to wear like nice flannels over a thin sweater, this would also fit that bill. And the last pattern on our list is inspired by a character I'm sure nobody likes but loves to make fun of, and that's Taylor Dozy. I had to include this one because Taylor Dozy wears that ultimate grandpa style cardigan, and I have the perfect pattern for that. It is the Gigi Cardi by Knititude. I adore this pattern. I have it in my queue to knit for Doyle this year, and I am going to get to it, I hope, within a year. So hopefully you'll see me knitting it on the podcast soon. But for now, I'm sharing it in this pattern roundup, and I am just in love with this sweater. I have loved it since Knititude first showed it off because it is that ultimate grandpa style sweater, and I love that it is knit all in one piece, top down in the round. Well, it's flat because it's a cardigan, but it's all one piece knit top down. And I just think it is a really stellar pattern on a variety of shapes and sizes. And it's definitely something that would fit very nicely in Taylor Dozy's wardrobe. And with that, we've made it to the end of this list of my top 30 size-inclusive patterns inspired by Gilmore Girls. And I'm looking around me and I see nothing but darkness outside, so I am just hoping that all of the lights that I put on made it so this video is not too dark and I won't have to re-record it. I might even just like fiddle around with the lighting in some of the later sections just so I don't have to do another recording of this, because I am tired now because I talked probably as much as Rory and Lorelai do in each of their episodes because I had so much to share and so much to say. I really hope you enjoyed this list of patterns and that you find something that you like on this list. If there's something that you liked about it, let me know in the comments below. Let me know any of your Gilmore Girls opinions, whether you have favorites that match mine or maybe you have different favorites than me, and we can have a lovely chat in the comments. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining me, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. While you're here, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and check out some of my other videos. I mainly do podcast episodes and pattern roundup videos like this, but of course I have other special videos as well, including my recently finished My Knitted Wedding series. So if you haven't checked that out, take a look at that. I hope you found something that you liked in this video, and I hope you all take care and happy knitting!